Hello there and welcome back to another review. So today we're going to be looking at Howard the Duck, made all the way back in 1986 and directed by, I think it's Willard Huyck, is how you say his name, or Huyck, and starring Lea Thompson, Tim Robbins and Jeffrey Jones. And I always remember seeing this movie in the video store when I was younger, seeing that poster of like the eggshell with like Howard's beak sticking out and the scar and things like that, and thinking, what the hell is that movie? Right, being as young as I was, I knew nothing about Howard the Duck. I had no idea what this movie was, but I just remember seeing that eggshell. You know the poster, I mean, you know the cover of the movie, with say the cigar sticking out and things like that, and I didn't know if it was like an adult movie or a kids movie or what on earth it was supposed to be. I had no idea, and I think I caught it on TV like maybe a year later or something like that, and I've got to be honest, I'm probably going to get absolutely pillaged for this, but I actually quite enjoyed it. When I first saw it originally, I really enjoyed Howard the Duck as a kid. Now George Lucas was all over this, and I think this was like the first sort of Marvel related movie at the time for quite a long while, because I say at this moment in time, in like mid to late 80s, even bulk of the 90s, you know, most Marvel films weren't the thing to do. You know, it's not like today where it's like it's a surefire, you're going to make money. Back in the day, comic book movies were a bit of a gamble, like a huge gamble. They weren't exactly hugely popular at the box office. They didn't necessarily do all that well a lot of the time. It was only really sort of when sort of 1989 Tim Burton's Batman come along that people started to really sort of like, okay, that something can be done with this medium, something, you know, there are ways you can do it. But Howard the Duck is such an odd commodity because it's gotten a lot of flack over the years. A lot of people disregard the movie right away without even actually seeing it. But I think if you were there when it came out, or you saw it around the time when it was sort of on TV, or like not long after it had been released, at the time it wasn't, I didn't think it was that bad. But then I was a lot younger then at the time. But as I say, in terms of Marvel, I think this was, like I say, the first Marvel related sort of movie for quite a while. Now, this movie didn't do well with critics on just about every level, okay? In regards to tone, performances, humour, you name it, this film didn't do at all well. But like with loads of movies I review on this channel, the film has developed quite a cult following over the years to some people, despite it often being referred as sort of one of the worst movies ever made. And I think Lea Thompson had a huge part of why this movie, why I liked this movie when I was younger too. Huge Back to the Future fan. So, seeing like Lorraine McFly in another movie, it's almost like in a weird way it sort of already felt familiar. Like, oh, I know this actress, I know her. She's in a franchise that I absolutely love. So seeing her in something else, it was like a natural sort of transition to another film, if you know what I mean. Like, oh, I know who she is. I've seen her in something else. It almost in a weird way felt familiar. So I think she was a huge part of why I liked this movie when I was younger. And I think, like, even she said the film, she did say the film did affect her career quite a bit. I think originally Lucas wanted John Landis to direct this, and I think in the early stages it was actually meant to be an animated movie. Like, that makes a lot more sense, right? But I think I don't know if it's like budget, money, whatever it may be, it ended up being a live action. So as we all know, the character of Howard was altered drastically from his comic book counterpart, and was overall just made to be a lot more nicer, a lot more polite, and a lot more family friendly. And that was me, like, as a kid. I couldn't work out, even before I saw this, is this a kids movie or an adult movie? And it tries to be both and neither at the same time. Like, they've changed the character of Howard the Duck quite a bit in the movie. They try and seem like it's edgy, but it's really not. It's quite a very, very, very kid-friendly movie. And I think the reason why this was live action is because I think an animated movie would have just taken a lot more time and a lot more money, as I mentioned. And I think as well, the filmmakers had to be super careful that Howard didn't look like Donald Duck, right, to avoid a lawsuit. And I think as well Robin Williams was the voice of Howard, and I think he like quit after a week, and you know, I think, or something like that. I think Robin Williams was attached to this movie, correct me if I'm wrong. And I think, right, in terms of Howard the Duck, I think there was around, was it 5-6 actors that ended up actually playing Howard the Duck in total, or sort of gave physical performances as Howard. And I think the problem with this movie all the time, it was a movie sort of no one asked for, nor did anybody want, but we got anyway. Do you know what I mean? And there's so many films, like even now, like that come out where it's nobody asked for it, nobody wanted it, nobody was requesting it, anything, like nobody expected it, but there it is, Howard the Duck. You know, it was like sort of, there we go, you know, that's Howard the Duck. And I think if they would have made Howard a lot more edgier and gave him a much more stronger personality, maybe the critics wouldn't have been so tough on this movie. Not to mention the costume and face of Howard, it's like, especially his face, it's near enough sort of expressionless, right? There's no expression in his face whatsoever. But like I mentioned, with all the film oddities, they always find that, like, that with all the film, like, bizarre movies out there, all the films that are a bit quirky, a bit different, or films that you think were initially rubbish, but then it turns out you watch them years later and they're not that bad. But all them like films like that, they always find their audience eventually. They always find the audience, and it's just a shame with this movie. I actually don't mind it. I'm going to go on record. I actually don't mind Howard the Duck, whether it's because it's a nostalgia thing, whether it's because of Lea Thompson, whether it's just because, like I said, at the time when I saw it, or like I say, the fact he had Jeffrey Jones in it, like I'd seen in Beetlejuice. I don't know, but it felt like I was sort of, it was my kind of movie, right? It was stupid. I even knew that as a kid how stupid it was. But I didn't think it was that bad, and I still don't. Watching it again recently, I don't think it's that bad. Yes, it's bad, you know, it is bad, but it's nowhere near like one of the worst movies ever made. No, definitely not. Definitely not. And like I say, it's just a shame it was played too family friendly when this really could have been. It really could, if they had gone the whole hog and take a real gamble, a real risk, and made it an edgy, dark, comedic sort of satire. This film could have been amazing. It could have been absolutely, it really could have like come out of nowhere. It could have been like a, you know, oddball screwball type comedy type thing that gave the middle finger to sort of the establishment. But again, had to play it safe, had to get bums on seats, had to make it as family friendly as possible. So right away, as soon as the film starts, it's like George Lucas presents, right? As soon as the film starts, we have to make sure everybody knows George Lucas, right? He's there. Just in case you were unaware going in if George Lucas had anything to do with this movie. And we meet Howard like coming into his apartment and with movie posters, like posters containing so many duck jokes. Look, I mean, it does get a bit like we have May Nest, W.C. Fowles, Breeders of the Lost Stork, and they just go on and on. He has like these movie posters and it's sort of scattered around his apartment. And, anyway, his chair gets sucked by like some force, and we even see like some duck boobs here, right? As his chair crashes through some rooms, and his chair gets sucked, and he gets sucked across the universe to sort of Cleveland, Ohio. And no sooner has he been there, and he is running right with some punks and meets Beverly, Lea Thompson's character, who is sort of playing with her band. He then gets chased by a biker gang, and all he's really doing at this point is crashing into stuff, okay, and falling over. That's all Howard the Duck is doing. He's just sort of crashing into stuff, going from one calamity to the next and falling over. I don't know if we're meant to find this funny, cute, charming. I have no idea. So he saves Beverly from like some punks using what he calls quack foo. See, the duck jokes, they, you know, as if they haven't gone far enough already. So Beverly says he can stay at hers, where she finds a condom in his wallet. She drifts off to sleep. Okay, so next day she takes Howard to see Phil, a scientist, played by Tim Robbins. And I love how he's like, Tim Robbins, he plays it so over the top, this character. Like, he wants to find Howard's superpower and things like that. And it makes me laugh. She takes Howard in, right, like to see the Tim Robbins character. Like, makes him under wraps. It's all covert. She's trying to sneak him in. Then after this, she's just happy to sort of walk out together as they have this argument. So I wasn't sure why she was like, I have no idea, but like she sneaked him in, but she happily just walks out with him. So what does Howard do next? Why, he gets a job, of course, at this local like saucy bathhouse. That's what he does. So Howard goes back to see Beverly, and her like Josie and the Pussycats band seem like it seems like Howard never ever runs out of cigars either, and that's about as edgy as Howard gets. I mean, he's got a condom in his wallet, okay, he smokes cigars, okay, but that's about as edgy and as raunchy as sort of this Howard gets, you know. It's like, you know, not exactly, compared to the comics, it's like I say, they played it safe. So Beverly and Howard are bonding, and she wants him to be like their band's manager. I mean, why not, right? Why not? You got this duck there, just let him be your manager. We meet Jennings, played by Jones, and they were testing like this laser which hit Howard's planet, and he wants them to like just reverse the laser. Jennings, like sort of while reactivating it, gets caught in the laser, and you know, he wonders what has been brought back this time. And you have to give full credit to the cast in this movie, as I think, to be honest with you, I think with the combination of Lea Thompson, Tim Robbins and Jeffrey Jones, I think between all three of them, they make Howard the Duck enjoyable. Okay, and I think, like I said, I think that they should be given full credit, because I think they do a fine job throughout the movie, despite how silly and stupid the film is. I think the cast really do. It's a nice trio here that work well together. So Howard, Beverly and Jennings evade some cops, and he is in like super bad shape at this point, right? And like, I mean, he's looking like death, right? Because he's had this thing with the laser, and something's been brought through, and nobody knows quite what's going on. He's sort of possessed. He's got this thing in anyway. So Howard and Beverly don't even seem to be worried about what's happening, but to Jennings at this point, even when his voice changes, they're like, let's just go get some coffee. And like, they're really not worried at all. And there's a great shot of all three of them walking into like this cafe, and this where the film is quite, it's witty. I mean, it's predictable, but this is where the film is actually quite witty, and I do love this scene where they walk into this diner, even when Jennings, like now possessed, saying like sort of your world is coming to an end, and they just sort of roll their eyes, like they're not scared or worried at all. And he's like this dark overlord, you see, and he wants to bring some more overlords, and the makeup on Jones is actually quite cool, very similar to something like you would see sort of on Jeff Goldblum out of The Fly, sort of that kind of character. So the staff and the customers all want to cook Howard, right? They all want to cook Howard at this point. Jennings needs this code key and wants to use Beverly for his plan. And they take like this truck, and I'm not sure why when they're on this truck why she didn't just leap out of the truck as she is being kidnapped against her will. Nope, she just has a nap. I mean, if you're being kidnapped and you're scared and you just want it, you would use any means necessary to just escape, right? If you have to quickly jump out of a truck, okay, you'll probably get a bit bruised and a bit battered when you fall out, but no, she just happily just has a sleep just on this truck. She doesn't seem to be that sort of scared that she is being, sort of kidnapped against her will. So next, Howard and Phil, or Philsy as he calls him, get on this sort of light aircraft, and guess the idea here was to give the film a sort of a very light-hearted sort of action scene. Now, despite what you say about the movie, I think for the most part it's fun. I think, yes, it's stupid, as I say, yes, it's silly. But in terms of fun, and if you were watching this in the early 90s, late 80s, and you were about 5, 6, 7 years old, you would probably have a hoot with this movie. I know I did when I was younger. It wasn't like the Goonies or Goonies or Gremlins or anything. It wasn't like, oh, it's an absolute classic. But I loved it. I enjoyed it when I saw it, and it was one of these movies I saw on the TV. I had to record it on video, and I watched it. I watched the hell out of Howard the Duck, and I had like my fun with Howard the Duck, and it was really like a good time. Looking at it now, I've watched it many times over the years. Yes, I can see why it's got a bit of a reputation, but also I think over the years as well, it's also gained fans as well. There's people that have watched this saying, "Oh, it's quirky. It's stupid fun. It's not taking itself too seriously." And like I mentioned, I think overall the film does have its moments. Howard and Phil get to Jennings and Beverly, who are at this sort of like laser. Jennings at this point is looking like a cross between Dr. Robotnik and sort of Dr. Willy from Mega Man, and sort of like Seth Brundle from The Fly. So sort of these three characters sort of all rolled into one, sort of a hybrid. And I have to love how they have like this heroic, gallant like music playing. Sort of whenever Howard is doing anything, they have this sort of, it's like the Howard the Duck theme or something like that. And we get to see the Dark Overlord's true form, which in terms of effects and for the time really doesn't actually look too bad at all, and it's quite obvious here to see where most of the budget went. And as a kid, like I said, I did find this whole quite scary, but scary in a good way. Like, you had to keep watching it. You were scared, but I'm definitely have to keep watching. A bit like Return to Oz, when I saw that the first time. I was absolutely crapping my pants, but I had to watch it because I was actually really, really loving it. But Howard the Duck at the end, bit scary. I remember as a kid it was a bit, oh god, but I still was enjoying my time with the movie. Howard uses a laser to blast the Dark Overlords away, and Howard becomes like Beverly's band manager, sort of like, you know, just quickly glossed over the plot here, but he sort of becomes her band manager, and they perform this song at the end, which sounds very similar to, if you listen to it and you do know your music at all, it sounds very similar to sort of Let's Go Crazy by Prince. It sounds similar to that, sort of the same type of riff is involved, at least to me anyway. You might listen to it and like, it sounds nothing like it. So naturally, of course, Howard has to take sort of a guitar solo, and that's sort of the end of the movie. But as I say, I still enjoy this film despite the haters. And I say, I think Lea Thompson is absolutely fantastic in the film, and I think, wasn't she actually, did I read somewhere she was actually campaigning at one point to like sort of direct a new feature film of Howard the Duck? I mean, I think, or she did like sort of put it to Marvel, and they sort of passed on the offer, but I know at one point she was sort of attached or pushing to direct sort of a Howard the Duck movie. But no, have to let me know, all you guys out there, if you've seen Howard the Duck. I'm sure many of you have, but all of you out there, if you're watching this review, let me know what you think of Howard the Duck. Is it a classic for you? Do you think it deserves all the hate it gets? And this is one of them movies that everybody's got an opinion on, right? Everybody's got an opinion on this movie. There's probably countless reviews to it on YouTube and all over the internet, and everybody's got their sort of their two penneth that they've put in. But I thought I'd just give my take on the movie and how I really, overall, I don't think it's too bad. I think it's a fun movie. Okay, Howard the Duck doesn't have a lot of expression. He basically has no personality whatsoever. But overall, as a whole, with like sort of the cast in this movie, with how sort of silly and stupid the film is, and what's annoying is like sometimes it does sometimes like understand it's not taking itself too seriously and just tries to have fun. But there's moments, unfortunately, where it's sort of taking itself a bit too seriously and playing it a bit too straight, which it really shouldn't. This should have been a film that from start to finish is just absolutely sort of almost taking the mickey out of itself and just having fun with the premise. But let me know what you think of Howard the Duck, and do you think it is really as bad as what other people make it out to be? So thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all that heavenly glory.